Hello, today we are talking about soils. So I'll see if maybe this time I can get my slides to share with you. Soils are super important because it is literally the foundation on which we build our society and where we get all of our food. So these are your 3 goals by the end of this video and class. You should be able to do these 3 things. So pause the video for a second and write them down. Okay, so there's 4 main components to soils. So there's mineral matter, organic matter or humus, not hummus, humus, water and air. So water and air make up about half of the soil content, and that's what is in between the actual soil particles or sediment particles. So soil texture is the proportion of different particle sizes, and this greatly influences the ability of a soil to support plants. So we have 3 soil particles. We have sand, silt, and clay. Sand is the largest of the soil particles. It ranges from 2 millimeters down to 0.05 of a millimeter. It has really large pore spaces, so that allows the water to drain really quickly from it. Silt is the medium-sized soil particle, but as you can see, it is significantly smaller than a sand particle. Clay is the smallest of the soil particles. It's teeny tiny. You can't see it without any really intense magnification. You couldn't see an individual particle. So that being said, they have teeny tiny pore spaces, and so they drain really slowly, and they can hold a lot of water. We have loam, which is a soil with roughly equal parts of all 3 of those particles, sand, silt, and clay. And this is the best for agriculture because it has all of the benefits of all 3 soil particles, but none of the downfalls of having too much of any one kind. So if we have like all clay, so 100% clay, or even 90% clay, then the water can't drain and roots can't penetrate it, and we might drown a plant, or a plant might not even be able to get its roots deep enough to get any nutrients. If you had all sand, the water would drain away much too quickly for the plant roots to be able to soak up any water. Also, the sand doesn't hold many nutrients, so it wouldn't be able to provide a good growing environment for the plants. So we want a nice mix of all 3 particles if we're going to grow plants in it. All right, so there are 5 soil formation factors. The first one is parent material. So this is bedrock or loose unconsolidated rocks at the bottom of a river or somewhere, and this determines the mineral content of the soil. So it determines the rate of weathering. So if we have large or smaller pieces with more surface area, like individual rocks, then there's more surface area for weathering to take place on. It determines the fertility, so the minerals that are in the rocks will influence whether or not it would be suitable for plants to grow in. Our second soil formation factor is time. So the longer a soil's been around, the thicker it gets. So the more distance there is between the surface of the soil and the bedrock or the parent material. And the longer it has to weather. So that's a big influencing factor. So the third soil formation factor is climate. So remember, climate is the general temperature and precipitation of an area over a very long period of time. We're talking like hundreds of years. This influences the rate that a soil forms, the depth of the soil or the thickness of the soil, and also the types of weathering that will occur. So if we remember back to when we talked about weathering, and we remember our Alka-Seltzer lab, our chemical reaction of the Alka-Seltzer was much faster in warmer water. So in warmer, more humid climates, weathering is going to be a lot faster, so the rates of soil formation are going to be a lot faster, and the soil depths are going to be a little bit deeper. And then we have soil, the fourth one is organisms. The fourth soil formation factor is organisms. This is all of the living things. And living things influence the mixing of the soil and the fertility of the soil, or the nutrient content. So we have animals like earthworms and moles, and then also like plant roots. They physically get down in the soil and they mix it up. And so that can be really helpful for agriculture, and it can also be hurtful. It depends on the situation. And then the nutrient content, we've talked about lots of nutrient cycles that take place between plants and bacteria, living and animals that are all involved with the soil, like the nitrogen cycle. And so this is really important for plants. Most of the nutrients that plants need to grow come from organic matter. So it's really important to know. The topography, or the slope of the land, determines the erosion rate, how much or how little drainage there will be, and the temperature of the soil. So erosion, like if you're on a really steep hill, then gravity is helping out to pull those soil particles down the hill, and so your soil is never going to get to be very deep. And on the other hand, if you're at the bottom of a flat valley, so all of those eroding particles from uphill are actually going to come and pile on top where at the bottom of the valley. So that's going to help the soil get really thick really fast. Drainage, same thing, steep slope, all the water is going to run away really quickly. If you're at the bottom of a dip or a valley, the water is going to sit there for a really long time, and that's going to have a big influence on how the soil forms. Temperature is mostly like which way the slope is facing, so how much sunlight it's getting. And so that'll influence the chemical reactions and also the plant that can grow there. Okay, so now after the 5 soil formation factors, we have a soil profile. So this is the layers of the soil as you go down from top down to the bedrock. Each layer we call a horizon, and the letters of the horizons correspond to the content of the layer, not alphabetical order. As you can see, it's very much not in alphabetical order. We have O, A, E, B, C, R. Okay, so the very tippy-toppy layer is the organic material. So it's very important to remember. I think this is the very last thing on your notes. But not all soils have all of these layers. These are just all of the possible layers that soil could have, but not all soils have all layers. All right, so skip back up to the O. So we have the O at the very tippy top. It's the organic material. It's plant matter that has not been really decomposed a whole lot. So like you could still see the whole leaves. You could still see maybe a whole squirrel bone or something, but I don't know. And then we have layer A as the topsoil. And it has some organic matter at the top and some mineral matter at the bottom, and they mix in between. And these 2 layers are super important for agriculture because that's where most of your nutrients in the soil are found. And then we can have between the A and B layer an E layer, which is an eluviated layer. So it means that all of the minerals have been leached out or washed out or eluviated. So it's usually a very like gray looking layer. And then we can have B layer. This is called the subsoil. It's where all of the fine clay particles have washed down from the A and E horizons. And this is where the very lower limit of plant roots can reach. And then we have the C layer, which is partially weathered parent material, so you'll have a lot of big chunks of rock a lot of time. And then also some more fine soil particles. And then the R layer, or the bedrock, solid rock. All right, so you're going to want to take a minute to sketch this soil profile in your notes. So if you need to go back in the video a second, do that. And then next time we meet, we will go out and we'll dig and we'll see how deep down in the layers we can get around the school. All right.